Okay. This feels optimistically like a live stream. What do you think? Uh, Sound is happening. I got a few folks lined up in the chat. Good to see you over there. Thanks for showing up early on a Saturday morning. It's kind of like cartoons. Who used to watch cartoons? Yeah, it's not quite cartoons, but we'll try to keep you entertained with some cool expression. Here's my clean tone. Hopefully you got a little bit of sound here, both from the microphone and from a little bit of music. We're kicking it off with some Lost Chocolate Lab here that will be processing through different effects and tackling this idea of expression for effects pedals. So you can see the table is set with a bunch of wild stuff. I even have a array of things underneath. Could maybe take the detail cam and take a look behind the scenes at some of the cool stuff in the wings. And if we get wild, we can always go down to the pedal boards or pedal shelf. Y'all keep me posted if there's something you want to see. But I thought I'd throw this together because expression, it's at the core of what Pedal Brainz is about, and I feel like sometimes it's not super clear why you would want to do things with expression. There's a ton of effects, putting expression jacks here, and you might look at those and think to yourself, like, what? Why? So we're going to dig a little bit into the creative side as we explore different effects. And I wanted to start out with a little bit of the how we even expression. So up front, just talking about like what that does, right? So if you're over here on Instagram, we got everything lined up and running at the YouTube channel with some sound, and we're going to start digging in. A couple things to notice here. Got a little waveform up at the top, and that is going to be measuring the amount of expression throughout the live stream. So you see that going up and down, and that'll be us applying different amounts of expression across effects. Okay, what's expression? Okay, back to this effect pedal. So it's got an expression input on it, and what that does is sends a control voltage out of it, and it's a tiny little low voltage. Not a lot of standardization here, so depending on the effect, you get different amounts of voltage, but all really low voltage signals. And as that leaves the effect pedal, it arrives to an expression pedal, and that expression pedal, spoilers, it's just a knob, okay? But it's a auxiliary knob that you can use to tweak all of these other knobs, or some of them, depending on what the effect allows you to do with that control voltage signal. So it's kind of as easy as that. It goes out, the knob attenuates that voltage, so it controls it, and then delivers back into it the changed voltage, and that can relate to different properties of the effects. So I don't know, what do you think? Should we take a look and listen to what that actually means? I'm starting here with the no-brainer. This was a V1 no-brainer from Pedal Brainz, and without even affecting anything, we're just going to go ahead and turn that can see that graph over here is adjusting as I change the amount of expression. Cool. So it's kind of that easy, right? And we don't have it hooked up to anything yet. Just to give you a little more technical details here, I'm running this expression pedal into the Mission Expressionator. This is the first of our expression friends. So this expression pedal is coming into here, and I've got that running out into 3 different devices that we can toggle on and off and hear the effect of expression throughout the experience. So keep me posted as we do that. The first thing I'm going to toggle on is this Blurst filter from Electro Harmonics. You can already hear a little bit of that filter engaged, but as I turn this knob, and as you see that graph, you should start to hear that filter roll down. I got the blend up a little bit, so let's get that turned all the way. Okay, so that's your first expression example. And we're just using this knob to control the filter on this Electro Harmonics Blurst pedal. Cool. Nothing too fancy there. Bring that back a little bit. But that's kind of the long and short of it. I'm going to swap into one of the Pedal Brainz third eyes to go a little deeper into this. So the third eye has the same functionality as the no-brainer, but it has another trick up its sleeve. Okay, and along with the ability to change the direction on of that control voltage path from a effect pedal. And let's even take a look at how that works with the taper of this. So roll that down. It's kind of curvy. And if I change that tip direction, I don't even know what that does, but check it out. Taper gets a little more linear when I've got it flipped in the other direction as it's interfacing with these effects, and that can change on a manufacturer by manufacturer basis, or even a pedal by pedal basis. And so this is really just your first compatibility control, but it's also a creative control. So when you're working with effects that have expression and you're trying to get that sound dialed in, or you're trying to get the amount of expression dialed in, yeah, flip that. It gives you a little bit of a different feel to it, to the feel of the expression as you're working with it. So cool. I dig that. The other thing that is here on the all of the Pedal Brainz series effects is this range switch, and I'm going to flip that back and forth. I've got the scale knob here all the way clockwise, and as I reduce the range from the highest down to the middle, down to the lowest, you can see that the top end of that changes just a little bit. Now, we didn't hear a whole lot of a difference there when I'm using this filter, but let's switch over to the pitchfork and get a little bit more fidelity out of that. So here comes that. I'm going to take the filter out of this. Okay, same thing, we're working with expression. So if and this is pitching it up 2 octaves. Okay, and let's get that blend all the way up so it's super exciting. All right. Okay, that's crazy. And then we'll even flip that tip ring so you can really hear the difference between the tapers for that potentiometer now as you're scaling it. One of them's a little more what they would call logarithmic, so it has kind of a curve or a scoop to it. And in the other direction, it's way more linear. Almost looks like I don't know, is it kind of direct slope? I'm not sure which one would be better for skiing, but I would totally jump off either of those. Okay, and then let's hear how the range switch affects that. So coming from the full range to the middle range, not much difference. Again, not much difference here, but let's see how that affects the taper of the potentiometer. So you see that rolled off way faster now. It's curved out a bunch. Okay, and then let's flip it to linear. Same thing. It happens a lot faster. So let's see if we can get an extreme of that. So there's with the range all the way down, and there's with it all the way up. So you can see how these hardware controls really affect the amount and the way that change happens across these different settings. So hopefully that's fun to see, and you see that interact differently with different effects as we continue to move through things here. Again, different effects, different compatibilities, different ranges, but it's all there to take advantage of. So I mentioned that the third eye here from Brainz has another trick up its sleeve, and that is this photoresistor or light-dependent resistor right in the middle. And so far we've been operating with it in manual mode, so it's in the EXP mode. We're going to flip that to engage the eye, and now what we have is we have this photoresistor in the center acting as the knob. So as we decrease the amount of light that reaches it, it's just like a knob, right? I mean, it's wild, right? Pitch, not the most exciting thing to do this with, except if you want it to be crazy. But we can see how the range is affected in this, and here directly the results. So I've switched it to the middle mode, which takes it down and kind of has the best compatibility from my standpoint with the pitchfork. And of course you can use the scale, bring that down, and still use it. So if you're trying to tune an effect. Okay, so that's kind of the extreme of it. And again, trying to give you the perspective of, precision for this kind of creative device. But let's take it back to our filter pedal. And it's the same thing where you can see the effect of that light on the expression amount, and with the Blurst pedal from Electro Harmonics controlling that filter. Okay, so yeah, I think we're having fun now. And of course, we're just scratching the surface of what you can do with expression. But these two illustrations I thought would give a really clear idea of how the expression amount works with effects, but also there's a lot of creative control and hardware compatibility to help you tune that and get it just into the place that you want it for what you're trying to do. Let's get a little kookier. I've got the Empress ecosystem wired up and calibrated to work with this expression pedal. And what I've got dialed in is a program that will do some delays, and when the expression is full, it feeds back, and when there's no, when the expression is fully counterclockwise or all the way back, it's just dry. So let's see how that works as we begin to bring some light in. Okay, so just kind of controlling the amount of feedback. And let's say it's just a little bit too crazy there at the most expression. You can kind of scale that back and like, okay, run away with it, but don't start, you know, feeding back past the point of what we want for this creativity, right? So you can kind of open that up, kind of stays in control, and again we can unloose that. And things start to get pretty crazy. Just pull that scale knob back and you can see it brings the total expression amount just a little bit lower. And now we have that dynamic control over the amount of feedback that we let happen. And some really cool control of this. So this is a really fun way to work with expression. And one of the reasons I love the ecosystem is that, you know, as a digital expression, you can actually define what any of the knobs will do. As we saw in the case of the Blurst and the Pitchfork, just out of the gate, those have a preset control. In the case of the Pitchfork, it controls the amount of the octave. In the case of the filter, of course, we've got it set to the filter setting for its expression mode. So it opens up and closes the filter based on the expression amount. Well, with the Empress ecosystem, you can actually dial in the amount. So for instance, if I let this go and it starts to get too crazy and I'm like, okay, well, I want to keep the expression open like this, but authoring the range of the expression is really easy because you hold shift, you push the expression, or you hold shift and dial the knob to where you want it to be at the maximum of that expression. And then as you can see, it's there, but not as extreme as it would be if we put the expression amount at the effect all the way to the top. So let's actually do that. Back to here, we hold the shift, roll that feedback all the way to the top, and now it's going to run away at full expression. So again, that's a super cool thing that a digital pedal like this gives you control over, is not just, you know, what one knob or property of the effect controls, but just infinite amount of variation or variability between one range on the expression and the full range. So as you can see with this fully collapsed, you know, it's got a different kind of range, so I'm going to dial that in a little bit. And let's say that I want to instead work with a different property here. So I've cleared the feedback for it, and I'm going to see, what does this do? Okay, that's kind of a groovy warble. Let's see if I can make that even warblier. Okay, so we can hear how that warble is a big deal there, right? And let's say I want to express that, so I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to roll that up to the top of where I want my expression. And then when the expression is low or heel backward in the context of a foot-based expression pedal, there's no warble. But as I let that up, here comes the warble, right? And oh, maybe that's too much warble for me when it's fully expressed like that. So let's reset that property. Okay, just a little bit of warble when it's full, and a little less warble, or none. Now let's combine that with the feedback. And you don't have to take it all the way back either. You can do an expression where the property for the ecosystem starts midway. And now, so we've got some expression happening there, but I'm going to hold Shift and bring that all the way to the top. So now when I go back to heel down, or, you know, reducing that amount of expression, I still get a little bit of feedback in there. No warble, but then as soon as I let that up, feedback comes up along with that warble. So again, just like great controls to be able to get weird stuff out of it. Like, let's even take this delay time. Okay, so same thing where we've set an expression value for the heel and toe, or the clockwise and counterclockwise, and controlling it with light. We can interpolate or move between the settings that we've set for the knobs on the ecosystem. It's interesting. What do you think? Thanks for the shout out over on Instagram. If you're tuned in over there, jump over to the YouTube channel. We've got all the audio and examples. You can hear what's happening and see what's happening with the expression. So this is the third eye from Pedal Brainz, and this is illustrating the use of a light-dependent resistor to influence things. So if you can get your head around that and how that's working, and hopefully the graph at the top is giving you some idea of how that's interacting with the effect, we're going to jump into the left brain, which puts this light-sensitive photoresistor inside of the enclosure, and then uses patterns of flashing light to modulate the expression. Let me just grab something here for a second. Because what fun would a live stream be without some live elements? And yeah, I realized I could just show you what is inside the left brain here. This is in the enclosure. As you can see, it's got the control knobs on the top, the buttons, the jack and power for it. And on the inside here is that light-dependent resistor. So in the same way that we've got it exposed here outside of the enclosure for the third eye, on the left brain it's inside, and we use patterns of flashing light to control it. Okay, so before we jump into that, let's look at a couple other examples of manual expression that you might run into out there. And I kind of love where we dialed that ecosystem in, so I'm going to keep that there. Here's a couple of expression sliders. This one's from Mass Effects. And as you can see, same kind of thing. Controlling the expression. That one has a very linear taper. As we discussed, it's like, naturally increases and decreases at a steady rate. That's pretty cool. Same thing over here from Old Blood Noise Endeavours. That's pretty cool, right? So just again, manual expression, adding it to your practice can really bring something unique. So that's pretty cool. Another one I'll give you an example of is this Chase Bliss expression roller. Same thing, except you can roll this one with your foot. Pretty cool. Yeah, so kind of a big fan of expression, if you haven't guessed. I love having it, and part of Pedal Brainz came from not having enough feet for all of the expression pedals on the board. So this is why bringing, as we'll see, modulation into expression and other control forms became something that I was really interested in. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to show one more example of a expression device that does something a little bit different. This is the Leems Beems. And instead of that light-dependent aspect of the third eye, the Beems is actually using a laser to calculate the expression. So let's take a look at that. If you click that on, should give us a little bit of expression here. I'm going to use it with the pitchfork if I can. Turn that off. Get that going. There we go. And you can see that the distance to my hand in this case is adjusting the expression amount. So another really cool use of expression out there in the world, and Leems has been iterating on this design over the last years. He's got the Gleams pedal, which brings a bunch of different functionality to this as well. So definitely check out Leems for some really cool expression stuff. So similar to the third eye, this is a distance-based, but instead of light, this just uses a laser to calculate that distance. So cool. I like the way that kind of fades off gradually. Okay, fun fact, ready? You started to catch this as this was, but the pitchfork there has a kind of built-in kind of interpolation, or it kind of scales to that value. So one thing you can do, actually, we talked about how expression was this kind of resistance or electrical application of that control voltage, and actually just influence that by touching the cable for your expression pedal to varying degrees of success. Oh yeah, looks really good. And you can see how the pitch of the pitchfork kind of recovers slowly. And that's kind of, again, one of the unique pieces of different effects is how they react with expression. Okay, so that was fun. Okay, so here we're working with the left brain from pedal brains, and this is that device where we bring light into the enclosure along with that photoresistor that measures the amount of light and translates it into expression. Right now it's just in EXP mode, and so it's just a manual device the same way we have been using the other ones. But now we're going to use light to turn that knob for us by putting it into I mode. So now you see when the light here is on, it's in the clockwise position with the knob all the way turned, and when it's dark, it's as if the heel has been rolled back fully counterclockwise. And so now we're using light patterns to influence how the expression works. And so we're kind of, for me, this was all about freeing up my feet from having to dance around the pedal board more than they already do. And so bringing this kind of modulation is pretty fun. Okay, so let's hear what that's like on a filter. And let's even speed it up a little bit. Right? And remember we were talking about the recovery time of that pitch, how it would gradually come back to a pitch. And the same thing is true with the filter, where you can hear the filter open and close in time with the flashing light. But as you speed that up, it doesn't have a lot of time to recover, or whatever kind of built-in recovery there is, it just can't keep up with the speed of the flashing light. Right? And so as we tune that down, we can kind of find the place where it stops being audible. And as I kicked in that range switch, bringing the range down, you see we had a little bit more effect there. So that's kind of fun. Kind of fun the way that that interacts differently. And while we're here on this setting for the left brain, which is the first bank, first mode called squares mode, as you can kind of see why it's called squares, because it just goes on and off. We're going to change the expression mode on this filter pedal to range. And what this does is it uses the range knob to set a speed. And now we can actually use the other half of this square wave, bring the light amplitude up, and set a bottom, or set a floor for the expression, so that now we're actually shifting between two ranges on the filter. So that's kind of cool. So again, this is just the first of 50 modes that the left brain has. We're going to take it up to the mode 2 in bank 1. This is triangles mode. And so hopefully we'll get a picture of what that looks like here. And we'll be kind of, we'll let the term triangle go a little bit, because what I've done with triangles is try to scale the curve of expression in order to give, a natural sounding travel of the modulation in a way that has been measured across different effects. So if I just did a straight triangle wave, I just found that it wasn't taking advantage of the way these effects sounded in conjunction with expressions. So even though I'm calling it triangles, and I think it represents that kind of linear pyramid-like value, I tuned this in order to work in a way that felt more linear with expression. So it's kind of hand tweaked, and I like it. I think it represents the intention of it creatively, if not technically. So in this mode, you have control over the speed. You can do a delay time for how long it stays lit while it's at the top of its maximum brightness. So you can see there I've dialed in a little bit of delay so that at the top of the pyramid it stays lit. And you can also dial in an amount of delay when it's fully dark or counterclockwise or heel down. You can see that kind of come in. And so fully controllable parameterization over these modulation patterns is at the core of the left brain. So this is triangles mode. It's mode 2 in bank 1. And if I move to mode 3, this is triangle random. And what this will do is add an amount of random variation across the sweep of the expression. And so we'll see that kind of kick in here in a second. So instead of just going up and down in the same way that it would in triangles repeatedly, we start to get a little more variation built into when it does it or how fast it modulates. And as I scale that back a little bit, you can see that it's adding a random amount of delay to the brightness and the dark values, adding a random amount of delay to how fast it ramps up and down, and just starts to bring kind of wild variation to expression, in a hands-free kind of manner. And so it's that kind of unique expression that the left brain is trying to capture and bring to effects. So I'm kind of interested to hear how this works now with the delay that we set up over here on the ecosystem. Okay, it's a little bit bonkers. I'm going to take that delay time out of it. So it's no longer controlling the delay time of the ecosystem. I think it's just working with the modulation amount and the feedback amount. Right? So when it's lit up, you get more expression, you get more warble. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool, but you know what? I need more feedback. I need more warble. And so I can start to bring a little bit more of that in by setting the delay for the brightness in this mode. And now I'm going to get a random amount you can see it's still kind of, you know, longer, but still random. So you're like, okay, that's cool. Now this is a little bit more of what I would want as part of my practice. So if I'm doing some cool guitar work using the pedal board, I've got one of these piped in, and it just brings kind of something delightful to the practice as part of an effect that I love, but that doesn't have this kind of modulation built into it. So accessible through the expression jack on the effect, I can start to get some really cool stuff out of there, and I can really dial it in if I want to, especially with an effect that gives you control over the properties of each knob and its expression. Okay, so that's pretty cool, and that's kind of the core of what makes the left brain unique. And it's a small market for these kind of modulation devices. If you're here tuned in, we're going to dig into a few of these other devices and take a look at what they provide, so that you can, you know, get an idea of expression, how it could work in your system, and how you could use these different modulators to expand what comes out of the box with your expression. So if you're tuned in over here on Instagram, jump over to YouTube. We're looking at wild waveforms for these different expressions. We're hearing sounds processed through these effects, and we got a ton more stuff to cover here. So get comfy, because we're going to dig into some wild expression across these other devices. Come on. Yeah. And so we got a ways to go, but I think that we're at a place where we've talked through, you know, what is expression. We've given some simple examples across different devices for manual control and for light-based control. We saw a laser-based expression controller. And the next one I want to look at is the Old Blood Noise expression ramper. And when this hit the scene, it was awesome. And we'll dig into what this does, but this gives you some great control to modulate, ramp between properties, and turn stuff on and off. So let's jump into that. All right. So again, it's an expression pedal. Let's get that powered up, get that plugged in. And I think we're going to take it back to our filter pedal in filter mode. So this is the expression ramper in bypass, and you have control over the waveform and the rate of the expression ramper. Let's do that a little bit as I'm talking. And so, yeah, let's see if I can remember how to work this since yesterday. So what I've got is an A rate, an A setting, a B setting, and a rate setting. And honestly, don't listen to me. Dan Pahacek from Old Blood Noise explains it all for you. And so, yeah, this is just me messing around. Go listen to Dan. He will explain it all. So as you engage the ramper, you can... Yeah. Where'd it go? Yeah, there it is. So you can see right now in triangle mode, we've got that expressed on the graph here. As we slow that down, they got the straight up triangle mode, right? Linear AF and doing its business in the best way. As you turn that off, you can see that just bypasses the expression. this song's no fair because it's already got some tremolo in it. Get past that one. Actually, let's jump into another Lost Chocolate Lab vibe here. And see how that works out. Okay. So now as we engage that, you can see that that triangle engages. And what we get is this fantastic filter sweeping that happens. And switching that off, again, takes that back to bypassing and engaging it. So that's kind of a great feature, right? Being able to turn on and off the modulation for expression. That is awesome. Let's flip it into square mode. And so now you see the wave shape has changed that it's expressing. You have control over how fast or slow. And it gets super slow, folks, which is really fun. And again, you can bypass it at any time. Cool. All right, so that's pretty rad. And then we've got the A and B mode that we're going to flip it into. And if I remember, what this is you set it into A mode at a speed. And then you flip it to B and set a speed. And then you put it into rate and it modulates between those. So switches in. And let's just set this a little bit lower so we can see the effect of that. All right, so now we're actually going between those two rates. Between those two expression values. Let's bring B up a little bit so we can see how that can be influenced. So now I'm setting the expression range for B. Right, so that's B, and that's A. Maybe that's a little too whiny for me, so I'm going to pitch that down or express that down. But B is still a little bit too open for me, so I'll flip that to B and set that all the way down. So now it goes between when it's bypassed the B setting and the A setting. And I think when it's rate, I can't remember how that one works. Dan explains it all. So dig into that a little bit more. But you can see very quickly the possibilities of expression ramping to get you in and out of different expression settings, putting that access at your feet. Really cool device from Old Blood Noise Endeavours. So dig it, expression ramper. We'll dig into a couple more here because there's some wild experiments happening. This is a company called Minta Labs, and they've got a product called the Lewis, which is a expression device. Put this in here and see what that does. Cool, and we might get kind of wild and experimental here in a second because there's some secrets inside of this box. So stay tuned on that. Folks who are tuned in, so great to have you in the chat. Thanks for bringing your perspectives. And let's see what the Minta Labs does. So we turn that on, and we've got control. You can see it's doing a triangle type wave right now, or you've got a switch to go from low to high. That's quite fast. And then you can actually scale that using this knob on the left here. That's kind of cool. They have a bunch of patterns of waveforms that you can tie to expression. So this is one of the triangle type. I think that one is the square. And yeah, again, you can shape it with this knob bringing in more or less of it. That's kind of fun. They also have 3 knobs: distort, shift, and crush, which allow you to bend the wave shape in different ways. So you can push it further down the expression spectrum, push it up, and kind of bend that waveform of expression around. Same thing with the crush. You can do some things to offset the wave shape in creative ways. Again, like, creative expression is such an untapped potential for your effects, especially when you've got an effect you love, it's got expression on it, you can do some customization around what happens when you're using expression, and really extend some of your favorite effects in really interesting directions. Here's another wave shape. It's kind of a triangle-ish. And again, you've got some controls to be able to wiggle that expression into a place where it suits whatever creativity you're doing. So this is the Minta Labs Lewis, and cool expression pedal from those folks. Really enjoyed what that can do. So, and again, for folks who are tuning in, what we're doing here today is running through expression and the potential for expression. I'm using different expression devices from pedal Brainz, which is a kind of expression pedal that I have been making across 3 different models. And we're running an expression pedal into this Mission Expressionator, which allows us to bring the expression from one device out to 3 different effects. And so far we've been running it into the pitchfork as a way to really understand what pitch does when you're expressing it. I mean, it's already cool. And pitch is a great one to illustrate what's actually happening with expression. We've also been using the Blurst filter and the ecosystem from Empress to do some wilder stuff. But you can hear how this is modulating the pitch of the pitchfork. And you get some different controls from the Minta Labs Lewis to be able to offset that expression waveform. It gets to be really cool and pronounced. You can hear how that changes it. Again, some really cool functionality here. And they got some great random modes here too. So here's a random mode that I switched to that just kind of wiggles around a bunch. I mean, broken tape, here we come. And using these knobs, you can kind of make the expression waveform a little bit more jagged. push it up or down in the expression range using the shift, as well as crushing it, which again, they kind of leave these controls open for interpretation. I set it up front, but this is a creative expression live stream, right? I'm not trying to give you the science. In fact, I don't even with the science, but what I do with is the expression and unlocking the potential of existing effects. So thankful to have some cool examples from folks out there making interesting stuff. Right. Okay, so the last one I want to show off here from a creative modulation device before we jump into some other effects that can use expression is the LFOMO from Soundgas Limited. So this device is, I think, meant to work across expression and synthesizers. And so it takes a little bit of a different setup for it. First of all, I'm coming out of the CV jack on it, so that's control voltage, and we talked up front about how control voltage comes out of an effect, is routed through an expression device, and then is modulated, or it's the low voltage signal from an effect is then controlled electronically in order to give us an expression value that's returned to the effect that controls properties of the effect. Well, the other thing they did is they reversed the polarity on this, so it doesn't work with a standard effect pedal voltage. So I've got some curious wiring behind the scenes that allow me to get the correct voltage for it. So if you get one of these, do not plug a standard effect pedal power supply into it. You'll blow it up. Make careful note of the polarity diagram on the back. It takes a non-standard 9-volt DC configuration. But let's dig into what it does. So back here with the LFOMO from Soundgas. So we've got power plugged in. We've got the output of the CV heading into our Expressionator. You can already see it's changing the way that works. If we bring the pitch back in, and on the graph above, you can see that it is working. So we have some range controls here to be able to dial in the voltage that it works in, and you can get that kind of dialed into a place that you're happy with. And now we should be able to control different aspects of it. First here is the shape, which looks like it kind of offsets where that peak arrives, either at the front of the waveform or towards the end, so it just kind of pushes that around a bit. And I should say it has 2 banks of waveforms listed out here on the bottom. Now we've got the rate. I'm going to crank that down a little bit. So now we've got control over how fast that goes, all the way up to something like that. And we've even got this multi-switch that can crank that into overdrive. So that's kind of fun. And I think the multi is just a multiplier that takes the rate times 1, times 2, times 4. And then we've got the level control, which gives us the ability to dial in the top of that expression range. So let's look at a couple other banks. Right now we're in the square waveform bank, as we can see. I'm going to shift that over here to triangle. And I think I can bring that level down to put that peak to peak like that. So that's kind of fun. Whoa, getting wacky. And again, with the shape, I can kind of offset. Make the triangle rise a little bit faster, make the triangle fall off faster, or any permutation in between. So you can see how that rate extends past the maximum voltage and gives you a kind of sustain while you're up there at the maximum expression range. As well, maybe I don't want as much wild pitching. Let's try it with the filter. So it's really fun to be able to just modulate these things. Let's try a couple of the B shapes. I'm flipping it in here. We can see it gives it a little bit more of a stacked, that's in this mode here. As we move through the bank selector, you can see we're now into the repeating curvy mode. Trademark, not trademark. Repeating snaggletooth mode. And somewhere over here we just start to get wildly random, I think. Again, with the same ability to control offsets in the shape, which must influence it in some way, as well as scaling that down if we want to limit the amount of resistance or expression. So that's super fun, right? I love these devices that bring unique expression to effects pedals. And let's try it with the setting that we had here on the ecosystem. I'm going to bring that back to bank A and something a little bit more static. So you can hear that. And you can hear when it's fully expressing, that feedback comes in. Again, we can make it a little bit bonkers. And all of the fun, all of the time, if you ask me. Yeah, so this is me using shift with one of the properties on the ecosystem in order to get the range for the minimum and maximum expression value in conjunction with whatever range I set for the property of the ecosystem. Cool? Yeah, thanks for coming, Sean. Nice to see you today, and thanks again for the great video you did with pedal brains, working with the left brain. Great to have those illustrations out there. Yeah, Lee, good to see you down there. The graph reveals all. I mean, isn't that rad? It's, of course, we feel with our creativity towards these sounds that we want, and being able to see what's actually happening, it demystifies it a bit, but ultimately it's about what makes sense to you when you're creating. Cool. Well, I think we should swap in some other effects, and yeah, let's go. I'm going to switch back to the left brain and get that back into place. just have a lot more control over it and know what it's up to. So I'll be happy to work with that. And again, we're using one expression device in conjunction with 3 different effects using the Mission Expressionator. Left brain. Take a break on this, just drive my fourth brain. Just proving it to a little Lost Chocolate Lab here off my latest release, Nostalgia. Always welcome to dig into that. And it's fun stuff to process, even past all of its processing. So take a listen when you can. So I'm bringing it right back to the squares mode, which again is that very simple expression mode. Which gives us a maximum and a minimum and control over the speed and top and bottom of that. And let's swap in some effects. Here we go. I'm gonna take the pitchfork out of the equation here and swap it in for something different. We're going to start with some effects that are just a little bit more plug and play. So with that, I'm going to hit the Stamme. Let's hear how that expresses. A wild box from DROLO effects and a cool box for expressing. And voila. Meanwhile, let's switch up the music a bit and go to something a little bit wilder. All right. DROLO effects. We've got this square pattern with the left brain going, and I don't even know what setting this is in. You can hear that when it's dark, it's pitching down. When it's bright, it's pitching up. And this is a great place to start. This is a great place to understand what the influence is. And of course, we can flip that into expression mode on the left brain anytime. And we can just control that with the knob. And make sure that we've got the full expression dialed in. Flipping it back into the eye automates it based on the amount of light there. And I'm skipping ahead. So we did the triangles mode, of course. We did the triangles random, which randomized when that happens. We've got the rainbows mode. We've got rainbows random, which picks a different maximum brightness each time it cycles through. And then another mode in this first bank of greatest hits is what's called Mountains mode. And Mountains mode is a kind of oscillating mode that can be dialed back to be consistent, as well as bringing in variations in the peaks. with control over that maximum brightness, either through the scale so we can dial that down, or through the range. And the other thing I love about Mountains mode is that you can bring in these randomized peaks. You can also, as you're climbing the mountain, you can introduce an amount of randomness to how long you'll actually stay at one of those values. So again, just bringing in some different randomization to it. So that's pretty fun with the DROLO. Let's try a different mode on here. This is one of the glitch modes. Another one here. I mean, it's pretty fun. Okay, now we're just playing around. So if you're hanging around for this, we're just going to do some wild different effects experiments. Maybe even bring that in. Pretty fun. Let's see what this one does. Between songs. Intermission. So that's cool. When this is engaged, it's grabbing a sample into the buffer, and then Expression is rolling that down. Another thing worth noting is that oftentimes the property of expression can be additive with the property on the effect itself. So in this case, we still have control over the value of the property that's being expressed on this effect. And from whatever value this property is set, we then have control to express from that position. And so that kind of interaction sometimes that you'll get between the property on the effect itself and the way it's expressing can really give you greater control over how that's working, how expression is working in conjunction with that property. So that's pretty cool to see with the DROLO Stamme. cool. It adds a little bit of motion behind what's happening. Cool, so we're in the mountains random mode now, where that's always randomizing the different peaks. What to look at next? Well, we might as well get kind of crazy for a second. Bringing out one of the faves. This is the dust from Deep Space Devices. And let's see what that sounds like with a little expression business. We're going to call this the distortion segment of the live stream as we get wild with some different distortion pedals that filter sound using expression. So it's going to be the dust from Deep Space Devices. Got that expression jack on the side, and let's see if we can blow things up a bit here for a minute. Those little squiggles. I just love the way that works in conjunction with the dust. And it gets really wild if you take it into a different thing. We're going to go to the pops mode and add some really cool squiggles there. So that's pretty fun. The other thing I notice sometimes is the Expressionator doesn't always capture the expression that's coming out of the device. So sometimes I like to bring that right into just to make sure I'm getting what I need out of it. Yeah, that's awesome. Dig it. All right. Expression of the left brain is affecting things. Nice. Clint, good job on that. Love dust. That's a fun one to play with. Let's try something radical. We're going to dig into the Generation Loss Mark II. Generation Loss, one of the first effects that I worked with that actually added a bunch of random modulation opportunities. So you had different controls for randomizing modulation, and while the Generation Loss Mark II is no slouch when it comes to you know, this kind of dynamic tape based modulation that comes with all kinds of surprise and delight. There's still some opportunities to bring expression into that workflow with Chase Bliss pedals. Ton of great control over how expression works using their plethora of dip switches here on the back. Do all kinds of cool stuff with expression. So let's see what we're doing here. I'm just using the Blurst as a kind of volume control right now. And let's go back to our square wave mode so that we can get a clearer picture of how this is working. Expression down, the way I've got it configured is so that it removes the effect or removes the warble. The flutter and wow are tied to it. So there's, when the expression is counterclockwise all the way heel back, you get less pronounced generation loss. That toe forward, fully clockwise. I'm just using the manual expression here. It brings in all the cool warble. Folks who are tuned in over on Instagram, jump into the YouTube where you can hear what's happening as I'm digging into different expression across effects using different expression controllers. We're having a good time just digging into the Chase Bliss generation loss now. So now if I engage the eye internal to the left brain and use this to control the expression, we have none when it's dark, and you hear the generation loss flutter and wow come in when the light is on. So no generation loss or at its lowest expression, and then when it's all the way up it gets nice and warbly. And again, with that idea of how do the controls interact with the expression, the position of the knobs on the Chase Bliss generation loss are the maximum extent of that expression. So as I dial these up, it gets more extreme because at its clockwise position, it's traveling to the settings on those properties on the effect. So this is another example, like the DROLO Stamme, where the property of the knob or the setting of the knob influences the extent of the expression. Dial that back a little bit. Wired into the failure too, where at the extent of failure, when it's bright, it will also express. Yeah, so just a ton of options here on these effects that offer expression to take them beyond, because when I'm using the generation loss, I don't necessarily like it to be fully affected all of the time. I like that to even come and go as an effect in its own right. And so being able to scale the extent of the wow and flutter while it's on just brings even more dynamics to what is already a super dynamic pedal by every measure of the word super. It's a triumph of engineering and creative expression. So yeah, nice work. Cool. There's my clean tone. And of course, there's some other really cool modes here on the left brain. If we take it back to Bank 5, Bank 5 is 10 different modes of continuously modulating and randomizing patterns of mathematics they call strange attractors. And so one thing you can see as we shift this down is that that pattern is going to always be trying to find different levels as it modulates along without repetition in the same way that you would with a straight sine wave, square wave, triangle wave. So just kind of letting this run brings a kind of surprise and delight to the amount of expression. And when we were talking about adding more variability to what was happening, like this is it, right? Like always shifting. And again, I can scale that down if I want. And again, the modes in Bank 5, the Strange Attractors Bank, is really meant to increase that amount of randomness while still making it kind of like you're just wiggling the knob, right? Hey, Rishi, good to see you, man. We got some really cool work in progress from the community out there embracing pedal brains with a bunch of modes that are in progress from Rishi, who's doing a genes-based exploration of randomization. So leveraging patterns of genome sequences to flashlights, and again, bring wildly unique patterns of randomization to expression as part of the left brain. So great to have you join in, and so cool to have your work as part of creative expression. Thanks so much. Okay, so I think we move on from the generation loss just towards a couple more cool examples. And when I mentioned that I was kind of into the distortion of that dust from deep space devices, I would be remiss if I didn't bust out the custom expression melt that Dirge Electronics whipped up for me that has an expression jack here that we can get the pedal brains dug into. So let's hear what that sounds like. Love it so much. And again, this is one of those that through the Expressionator doesn't have as much control because there's some hardware compatibility that the left brain provides that gives you a better experience. And so let's see what that's like. And we're going to bring this right into it here. Andres, nice to see you. Thanks for the kind words about modes on the left brain. There's over 50, and we haven't even talked about the expression looper. But let's start out here with the Dirge slowly melting. Alright, so that's bypassed, and I think if we bring that in, pretty glorious. And you can already hear the effect that this is having on it. As the lights flash, it's got some great synthy squiggles happening. And if we switch that into just the manual expression, okay, we lost our waveform, but hopefully you can hear the effect that has, and when we bring in the eye, how cool is that? I love it so much, and playing through it is a pure joy. So thanks a lot for bringing that to Pedal Brainz. Beautiful etch of the third eye, and it just works so great. Let's see what happens. Yeah, for whatever reason, I couldn't quite get it to work with the Expressionator in the same way, and that's just compatibility, right? And so that's what the left brain really tries to cover, is these different ways that effect pedals will leverage expression. And one of the benefits of having that level of control just means you can use it with more things, right? So dig it. If you're just joining in, we are well on our way to talking about expression with effects pedals. We did a deep dive up front about what expression is, how it works, different ways to express. We covered a lot of the devices on the table here, talking about manual expression, talking about light-based, laser-based expression, and then we looked at some of the other modulation devices. We're back with the left brain in fires mode, and it is plugged in here right now to the Dirge, slowly melting. We're going to swap this out and try to get wild with another digital expression that gives you a lot of control over what you can do with it, and that's the Red Panda Tensor. So Red Panda Tensor, this is a digitally controlled effect pedal, and so it has some unique parts of its setup, and this is something you'll want to be aware of as you're navigating this world of expression, is they're not all plug and play. And so when you're talking about digital effects, you'll want to make sure that you refer back to the manufacturer's manual to be able to get a clear idea of how to use expression with digital effects. Sometimes it requires calibration. And so with that in mind, I'm going to switch the left brain into manual mode. You can see that reflected in the graph at the top. This is just straight up knob, as you would expect a roller wheel on a foot controlled expression pedal. So like a wah type enclosure, right? When it is clockwise, it is heel down. When it is counterclockwise, it's heel down. When it's clockwise, it's toe down. So imagine your foot is sweeping that, and that's exactly what manual mode on the Pedal Brainz series of expression devices is for just manually controlling things. And in conjunction with the digital effect that requires calibration, putting it into manual mode means that the effect will see the appropriate values when you're calibrating it. The other thing to be aware of are the hardware controls that you have. You have control over the flow of control voltage from an effect, either from the tip to the ring or from the ring to the tip. And you also have the range of the expression in 3 different values that can be adjusted for compatibility with different effects. So I already know that I'm putting it right in the middle. That's a good spot for these red panda effects. And if I remember correctly, it has something to do with getting that powered on and holding this. Sweet. And holding this foot switch as you plug it in. Yeah, like that. All right, so I'm holding that on, and then what I need to do is sweep this back and forth and then hold it down again until the light blinks green. Now, in theory, we have now set that expression for the tensor. So let's crank this up a bit. And you can hear the effect that has on the tensor. Then at some point there's the ability to set the properties for it. So I think you figure out what your favorite pattern is for it. I like making it reversed. Okay, so let's say that that's my favorite setting. I then hold this. Maybe while plugging this in again. And then I change these properties. So let's say that we pitch it down a little bit. So now it should be really clear to us. Maybe even time stretch it and then hold that again. Blinks green, and in theory, oh, I needed to turn the knob. See, and this is why we live stream. So together we can learn. Okay, so I've got it in the heel down position, and I'm going to get it back to that setting that I really liked. Let's say it's that. I'm going to hold that button down and plug in the expression. And now I'm going to roll this up to a different setting, change it, and then hold the magic button. Okay. And now I'm expressing across this 2 different settings, my ideal setting and then whatever setting I'm interpolating to. So that's pretty cool. Manually again, but let's let the brain take over and see how that goes. And again, you've got the ability to scale that expression if you want. Put it in the pocket. Controls on the left brain over in this mode, which is the rolling hills. Rolling hills mode. With some additional control over hanging out and randomizing. There's my clean tone. back in this. So now we have all three effects using the modulation, expression modulation of the left brain. I'm not even sure what's happening right now. It's pretty cool. And again, just some great randomized dynamics happening. Let's just add a little bit of expression, controlling the delay time from the delay that it's at to something a little bit longer. So this could be ambient for days, right? All very dynamically expressed. Back to my clean tone. Weird. Cool. You know, one device that I didn't get to use yet is the Garage Echo Knob. So I think it's worth digging into that a bit if folks are into it. We'll be jumping into that next. Let's see, what can I use it with? Aha! This could be perfect. So we're going to dig into the Montreal assembly count to 5 here and get expressing with that. Still with me? Yeah? All right, let's do this. Cool. All right, so we'll get this Montreal assembly count to 5 wired up. Thanks for taking the digital calibration and setting up the red Panda Tensor. Awesome effect from those folks. Meanwhile, let's get this count to 5 wired up for expressing with the Garage Echo Knob. Let's see how I can get this into the Expressionator. That's a big question for me. Hadn't quite worked that out here. Meant to be plugged right into an effect. We're gonna see if we can't do it like that. Folks, just tuning in, we're having fun with expression today. How long is this going to last? Well, until the fun runs out for the day. So let's get that plugged in and see what we can do. Mm-hmm. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see this little device doing its thing over here. And we've got that wired in just like before to the mission engineering Expressionator. Allows us to take one expression device and put it out to 3 effects. We're running it with the Montreal assembly count to 5. We got it rocking the filter on the Blurst right now, and of course the Empress echo system here. The echo knob, a great effect to partner right alongside, a great expression device to partner right alongside an effect. Plugs right into the expression port, gives you control about over the speed of modulation, and then if you hold the button down, you get control over different patterns of randomization. I think we're into the randomized patterns right now. That's pretty cool. The way that this is built up is you hold the knob down and then rotate it. You can see the light getting dimmer until it gets brighter. When it's brighter, I think it signifies different extents of the selected modulation pattern. So right now I'll let that go, and we're in the triangle pattern. Hold it down and move it to the next dip, and now we're in the square wave pattern. Hold it down again, and we're in a randomized pattern. So 3 different patterns of expression modulation available here, and that's not all, because if I can remember how to do this, which, okay, these devices are kind of like a skill tree in their own. And so if I remember, it's a double click here to put it into expression record mode. And now what I can do is hold the button and author my own expression pattern. Go this way, little short one, another big one really slow all the way down, and then let that go. And we can see that that's playing back the expression modulation that I just authored in using record mode on the Garatge echo knob. And so we can take another jump at it. I'll hold it down. So now you can see my expression as I authored it, repeating. And again, such a great concept for allowing you to dial in like a really specific kind of expression to work in conjunction with your effects. So I'll turn off the filter for a second here. Come back to this. And let's say I want to do something really specific. For the ecosystem. It's pretty rad. Now let's check out how it works with the count to 5. Right? I mean, I think it's working. So what you're hearing is the expression and the count to 5 dialed into the center expression mode. And we're using the pattern of expression that I recorded in the Garatge echo knob to change the properties of that count to 5. Double click this, take it back into modulation mode. And I think I want it in the square wave mode, so I'll get that back to where it was. So Andre's asking, is it possible to change the speed of the recorded modulation? And I was not able to change the speed of it. I'm not quite sure if that exists, but it was not part of my experiment. I'm going to give it a try another time for you, though. Let's see. So go back to record mode. I'm going to record my squiggly little expression. Oh man, that's fun. And then I'm going to let the echo knob take care of that. Okay, so that's fun. And then I'm going to adjust this knob to make it as fast as it can. It doesn't seem to have a lot of... it doesn't seem to control the speed of the recorded waveform after. So, good question. Thanks for that. But let's dig a little deeper into the left brain, which also has an expression light looper on it that we should be able to get that feature of speeding up and slowing down the recorded expression pattern to you. So thanks to Garatge. What a great device. I love using that in conjunction. It just symbiotes right on the back of an effect pedal and gives you control over the properties of it in a really cool way. Okay, so we'll take that down a notch for a second. And what we're going to do here is we're going to put the... let's see. So we've got the left brain here. I'm going to put it in manual mode. Gives us control over it. And what did we decide that it does here? Yeah, it does some kind of crazy pitching. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the left brain into light loop record mode. Okay, so we've got this here, and if we're looking at it, we're going to hold the top button for about 5 seconds, until at which point it starts to go blinky blinky like this. And what you can get control of here now with the left brain in light loops record mode is that same functionality of being able to record the kind of expression that you want. So this knob here gives you control over the maximum brightness. This knob here gives you control of the speed. It's both a record speed and a playback speed, and so it will stretch out the amount of time that you're able to record in, but also works in conjunction with your ability to speed up and slow it down. So we'll put it at a nice middle place. And then this last knob here on the bottom gives you the ability to author a fade of light that works in conjunction as expression. And the last thing is the bottom button here will bring the light fully bright for a limited period of time while you're holding the button. We'll see how that looks. So I'm going to put it into record mode using the top button. You can see it went into record because the top light went red. And now I'm authoring a pattern of light with the knob. And I'll give it a couple of bumps of flashing at the end. And when I turn the eye back on, we'll see that there's that pattern of expression that I authored. Let's do it again with the eye on, if that's cool. See if I can't get you a good representation of that. So here we are. We'll put it into record mode. We dial up a pattern. And then playback mode. And we can see that that is playing back now, the same as I authored it. And this can now be sped up and slowed down. And here's the count to 5 being expressed by it. Again, we can speed that up. And so one of the thing about this mode, and it kind of opens it up for experimentation, is that if I take the speed of this all the way down and press record, that increases the amount that I'm able to speed it up. So if I record now, I get a shorter window that I can record in, but I think I can make it way faster. So again, it kind of works the same way. If I have it here, means that I can slow it down a lot more. So fun with expression looping. First with the Garatge echo knob, and now with the expression light loops mode with the pedal Brainz left brain. So yeah, cool. Glad I could illustrate that for you. Glad you were here. Thanks for dropping by and checking out the expression. Super fun. So that's the expression light loops mode. Grabbing something from over here. This is a set of optional menu cards that you can get along with your left brain that give you, human readable sized information about the hardware controls for the left brain, along with cool illustrations of the different modes. As I mentioned, there's 50 modes of modulation and that expression light loop recorder. So the bank 1 is a bank of 10 modes that I call the greatest hits. And on the back of that card showing the modulation patterns, you can see that all of the control properties are mapped out. That's true of Bank 2, the Shapes mode, which is a collection of different triangle and square and other kinds of shape-like configuration modes, including the super cool Twinkles mode. Super fun mode to randomize with. Bank 3 is Rainbows mode with some really cool modes inspired by discrete circuitry. Aaron Meager, who gave me some great ideas when he was beta testing the first version of Pedal Brainz Left Brain that I built into a bunch of different stepped random modes that bring, again, different plateaus of modulation. Let's actually jump into one of those and take a look at that real quick. So when you double click either up or double click down, it changes between the banks. So you can see that here. As I double click up, it takes me to a green pattern on all three, which indicates that we're in Bank 4 Nature's mode. If I come double click down, all of the knobs are yellow, and that puts us into Rainbows mode. And the first mode in Rainbows mode is the Rainbows Shift. Just a cool, groovy kind of modulation that you can scale up or down. And then we move into Rainbows Squares modulation. And you can see it kind of steps through some different steps of brightness. This is, sorry, Mode 2 Rainbow Steps. We move into Rainbow Steps random once, and now you get those same steps, but they are randomized. The next mode is Steps Random, and this is, you know, just another very random mode to bring different levels of expression to you in repeating patterns. Let's kick on the count to 5 and see what's happening here. So again, different steps. Is it compelling in a pitch bass effect like we're in the count to 5 right now? Maybe. And you know, we're here talking creative expression today, so you know, it's up to you to decide what makes sense in the context of your practice. Moving on from there, we're in the saws step mode. So that's just a set sawtooth, or a kind of saw of sets. Got the saws random mode. Couple of bonkers modes at the end of Rainbows mode that do some really strange modulation. You can see in this mode actually start to slow the modulation down a little bit as it's flashing. And wider and tighter over time. So that's kind of cool. Cue up some more groovy sounds of Lost Chocolate Land. Kind of Bugs Bunny right now, I'll be honest. But let's see what happens. And let's bring that filter back in a little bit. It's pretty cool, and you have a little bit of control over how long it stays down there, how fast it starts transitioning. Yeah, so that's a pretty cool mode. That's called it's called the Rainbow Squares Modulate. So it's modulating this square wave over time. Super wild one. And the last mode in Bank 3 Rainbows is the Pops mode. So kind of wild popping randomization that can be super fun. Get some different controls over it. And, you know, the next mode here, the next bank of modes is actually Nature's mode. And this is a bank of modes that we haven't talked a lot about, but we have a very similar mode up front called Fire's mode. And this brings some wild random patterns in the same way as the Pops mode we just looked at. And then we move through the Rolling Hills mode, which is a kind of mountains mode. Kind of, we can dial back the amount of randomness so that it's more like a sine wave that you might be used to, while also cranking up the amount of randomness and bringing different peaks and valleys. And this becomes extremely pronounced as you slow it down. And it also works great when you dial back the weight chance, which gives it a chance to kind of hang out at a certain plateau of that Rolling Hills mode. So again, all about bringing a kind of randomization to expression for effects. And you can see how this pattern will never repeat itself. And that's part of the draw of many of these modes. It's trying to bring some kind of just delightful spontaneity to the properties of different effects. Cool. So those are the manual cards that are optional when you grab a left brain from pedalbrains.com. I think I kind of did the things that I wanted to do here today. But that said, I'm going to take it back to the third eye for a minute. I'm going to go with one of these purple third eyes, and this is an unpowered device. This doesn't require any power. It's just a passive expression pedal. And again, we've got manual mode where it's just a straight up knob. Take that out, put back in our simple filter. And I'm going to swap out for a different effect. I'm going to bring in the Maneco Labs Shoegazer 12. This is a lo-fi 12 bits reverb. I have a lot of fun with this one. It's got an expression input for pitch, and I'm just going to go ahead and get routed back through that. And if you're still with me, I'm having fun. So hope you are as well. This has been an incredible expression journey across a lot of different devices. And maybe there's something fun for you to start exploring with expression. So let's get our sound back up. And we'll get this dialed in with a cool sounding. Once we engage the third eye, well, as manual, let's see. So this is expressing the pitch of the Shoegaze 12 from Maneco Labs. And we can engage the eye here with the eye switch on the side. And now we have control with light over that pitch. So this is the third eye from Pedal Brains. This is a light-based effect, some manual control options, and some scaling. And I got a question from Good Time Skeleton. Can it do a one-time linear ramp? So when it comes to the left brain, third eye, or no brainer from Pedal Brains, we don't have a one-time linear ramp option. We did look at the Old Blood Noise expression ramper, which gives you great amount of control over that linear ramp. So I would recommend that highly for that kind of expression. Gives you foot switchable ramping in the way that you're asking. So when it comes to specific controls, we're looking at the third eye right now, which has this photo cell on the outside. We're using it with the pitch on the Shoegazer 12. I'll try one of these other. So we're expressing with light right now. Actually, this is a fun thing to do too. You got one of these bonkers little flashy things. kind of a different way to get funky with expression for sure. I mean, I bet you got some flashing light toys at your house you can mess around with. So here's just a simple cap, and I'm going to use that to completely darken. Expressing both the Shoegazer 12 and the Empress ecosystem with some of the settings that we dialed in for expression. Cool. Well, I hope it's been fun. We have dug deep into creative expression today. Tremendous amount of potential waiting for you in the expression jacks on effects that you already own. So whether you bring it to your feet as an expression pedal that you control by rocking back and forth, whether you put it on your desktop and bring a kind of manual control to your expression, getting wild with light-based expression and using light to control it, or bringing it all the way forward to a light-based modulator to create those patterns of light and modulate the effects properties using expression control. There are a lot of great options out there to do that, and of course the Brainz series of expression devices can help you unlock the creative expression in your effects. So hopefully this has been a wild ride, somewhere between educational and inspirational. Yeah, it's been fun to crawl through these different devices. Fantastic stuff from builders out there, both on the expression side and effects side. So thank you to all the folks out there creating these and unlocking the properties of their effects with expression control, and other folks out there creating expression devices to leverage those features. So hope you have had fun, and thanks for expressing with Brainz today. Have a good one, and see you next time.